I don't know if you are in it. I'm not sure.
Unless they change the camera angle. I didn't like the
Oh, no, you are, for sure.
Yep.
That's all right. Just don't do anything stupid.
I don't know if you can keep it.
I'm just kidding. Okay. We're good. All right, guys, if you would, please, would you get out your commonplace books? So, Naya, the black books that Wildman gave you? You didn't? Just get out a piece of paper. I always feel, now that when I go through attendance if someone's not here and it says not feeling well, I'm like, oh, what? Like, I was just around you. Like, okay. I get really nervous. Same as in another class, I felt like I was, I feel like I'm not allowed to like cough or sneeze, like even if like I've got allergies really bad, or if I've got like a tickle in my throat, or if I've got something caught in my throat, can't really cough. Because as soon as you do, everyone's like you become a leper in that sense. I don't have corona. That's ridiculous. Oh, that would be amazing. I'd probably go get tested if I got a shirt. If I got a shirt that said that. Oh, inherently not racist for him, but racist if you think it. Yeah.
That's true.
No, yeah, I agree. That's funny. All right, we'll leave that stream up. Make sure it's there. Okay, so let's get started. But first, let's get started with prayer. Where's the book at? There we go. And then what I would love to do is today I want to talk about education and learning. And then tomorrow we will get into all of the Worldview topics and what they are, so that you can be better prepared to pick your topic on Wednesday. Yeah. Okay. So, so pray with me. Grant to us, Lord, we pray, the Spirit to think and do always those things that are right, that we who cannot exist without you may by you be enabled to live according to your will. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. All right. I'm going to turn this off because not turn it off, but just, yeah. Okay, so let's start by this question that I want to give to you guys and see where it goes from there. This idea of talking about what is it? I'm going to turn this light on too. I turned it off because it was hot and bright, and just leave it on. I want to start by talking about what does it mean to be educated, because I want us to not try to get the right answer, but try to shift our perspective of what it means to be here in this class, but not just in this class, in the whole building. Like, why are you at Covenant? For the purpose of ultimately trying to help you to understand what it is that you're doing in this class with the thesis paper, all of the assignments and things like that. But I think also it can help to give a different perspective of just why you're desiring to be educated, why you're going through school and probably going to go to college next year, like in the first place. Then by the end, we'll try to transition into like, how does the Christian worldview fit into this? One, what is the Christian worldview and how does it fit into this? But we'll start off talking about education a little bit. So here's what I want to do. This phrase with the question mark, but I have a question for you that deals with it. When you think of an educated person, what comes to mind? Like, what characters and qualities come to mind for you about an educated person? Here's what I want you to do. Take like a minute, think of 2 or 3, and write them down in your commonplace book. What characters and qualities come to mind for you when you think about educated people? Like, what does it mean to be educated? That's the question, but I'm just trying to give you other ways of saying it. So write down 2 or 3. Promise I'm not bored. Maybe a little. Mondays are rough. This is the third Monday in a row, too. Got to keep that in mind. Tomorrow will be a breath of fresh air. Though SRT is going to be terrible, but it's okay. It'll be great. Doesn't matter. It'll be great. I prefer longer periods. We have fewer of them. It's good. Okay. What does it mean to be educated? Faith, you had your hand up. Organized? Really? How does organized connect with, like, to be educated? Why is that something for you? Also, this is totally subjective. That was just, no one said that today, so that's unique. Not like, really, like you're wrong. I didn't mean that. Why is it that, I'm sticking my foot in my mouth now because of my response. I'm trying to backtrack on it. Why is it that an organized person is someone who comes to mind for you as, like, educated? Okay. I am probably not an educated person then. It's all right. I'm not terribly disorganized, but heard that. It's yeah. I went into his room once, and I needed like a brown paper bag. I had like anxiety. Anyways, organized. I like that a lot because it means that you know. I think that to be organized implies that you know what you're doing in that moment. You know what you're doing in the coming days, weeks. Like you have a plan. Sure.
I mean, like, yeah, that's what I was talking about. I wasn't really talking about, like, the actual organization. Like, you know, like the OCD. Not like that. But, like,
Okay. No, yeah, I agree with that. I like that. Okay. What else? What does it mean to be educated? Yeah, Gianna.
I said being open-minded.
Okay, so why is it that open-mindedness is a sign of being educated?
I think because narrow-minded people, like, they don't have as many opportunities to learn new things just because maybe they don't, like, agree with a certain thing or, like, see it a certain way. Then if they're, like, more open-minded to, like, learning different ways or, like, different new things, then that would make them, like, more educated.
Yeah, so here, I'll say broad knowledge probably isn't the best word for that, but I love that idea because they're willing to learn about different things. They're not stuck in their own corner of like, I'm right. I want to know if I'm right, and the way I'm going to do that is through discovering, right? By talking to different people, by encountering different ideas. Yeah, I love that. That's really good, to be open-minded. We'll put a star next to one. That was good. Because I think that's one that eventually I'm going to move into to say this is what I think this is the benefit of the Christian worldview when we talk about what does it mean to be educated, is that it produces this or it cultivates this idea. So yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, Claire. The ability to defend your opinion. All right. So I'll ask the same question. How does that equate to like being an educated person or characterize an educated person?
Because I think someone who is not educated, when their opinion is challenged, they just either go into a passionate rage of like, how dare you question me, or they don't really have an answer. I think someone who's educated has the ability to say like, here's the facts of the matter, here's what happened, here's why all those things, when you analyze them, just form my opinion.
Okay, so what if it is someone who is what if it's someone who is open-minded, but may not have gotten to the part to where they think through it? They can't defend themselves, but they maybe have like a desire to know.
Desire to defend your opinion?
No, a desire to like know, and so they won't be able to defend their opinion, right? Because they haven't necessarily thought through it, but they're in conversation with lots of different people to try to create that. I don't want to say defense, but create that like understanding of why they believe what they believe or why they're arguing for what they're arguing for.
Then the process of becoming educated.
Maybe. Does that mean that they're not educated?
Partially.
Partially? Like half educated, half not. All right. No, I like that. I'm not trying to argue against yours. I'm just trying to think through like if being educated means you can defend your opinion, like what if like sometimes in class, I'll be reading something and I'll bring it up and like I haven't thought through this at all. But like I want you guys to think through it with me. and like lead you in that discussion and like kind of work through some ideas.
So you want to be educated. At that point, you're not.
Okay.
That's what I'm.
No, yeah, that's good.
I haven't fulfilled that yet.
Okay. Okay. But to be educated is that you come to this point to where you can defend it and you know it. Okay, great. What else? What does it mean to be educated? Yeah.
This is kind of obvious, but higher intellect.
Higher intellect.
But not necessarily, that doesn't have to do with, like, wisdom. Those are kind of my second one. Also, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is your...
I don't know why.
Okay. We'll put the character there. I circle it only to differentiate. But yeah, higher intellect. I like that you're distinguishing between intellect and wisdom. I think that a lot of times we can see those two things as going hand in hand, that like the older you are, the smarter you are. Or the older you are, the more intellectual you are. I don't think that that's actually the case though, obviously. Because I know plenty of older people who are this but lack this. But this kind of sometimes ends up turning into that high intellect because intellect is not just a mass of information. This is like the first time where I would kind of shift from what intellect actually is that it's not just a mass of information. It is like a culmination of like one's entire life, like experiences, right? So I think that is what differentiates for me how I would define someone who was intellectual or someone who was like, if you could just use this word, smart, from someone who is wise. Because like this in and of itself also like, you can mean a lot of different things by that. Like I've known a ton of really, really smart people who are really, really dumb. Do you know what I mean by that? Like immediately, like I'm thinking of like soft skills, right? Like lacks social, lacks an ability to like pick up on social cues, lacks common sense, right? I dated a girl in high school who had a 4.0, but was I was going to say ditzy. Is that unfair to say? Like very, very like absent-minded. Maybe that's a very more professional way of saying that. Very absent-minded with like everything else in her life except for her studies. I've also known people who are very like high common sense, but they don't get the best grades, right? So I think to say, well, smart means educated, well, you got to define that. Yeah. Yes, yeah. I hesitate to say, not that I don't like saying street smarts, but it's, yeah, yes, it is that, basically. Yeah.
This kind of goes along with what you're saying, but I would say like they have life experience, certain experiences were in
Yeah.
life, they've been there, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that connects really well with wisdom. Absolutely. And that might take age into consideration. Like someone who is 20, I'm probably not going to take life advice from someone who's like a 20-year-old. Though I don't want to right? I want to be open-minded. Don't want to like totally block it out because their perspective might be one that's really important for me at that moment. But at the same time, if, this is like, I get this all the time of people who don't have kids telling me how to raise my kids.
I need the girls' golf team to be dismissed at this time. Again, please dismiss girls.
If any guys ever at any point get up, you can just keep walking. Like it's a joke. Like, oh, guess that's me. Like, just keep walking out. I gotta regather my thoughts because I get really nervous because like it can't have been 45 minutes yet. What was I just saying? Yes, because I'm open-minded to the fact that someone's experience, even if they're a decade or so younger than me, might be able to play into mine. That, in all honesty, that takes like a level of humility that not a lot of people have. That takes a level of like open-mindedness that not a lot of people are comfortable with. Why is humility? I think that's one of the key things. Why is humility a sign of an educated person?
I think it kind of goes along with the open-mindedness part, but it's kind of like,
I'm just going to put it up there.
say that like you travel to a different country or something and you learn like a different way that someone else does something or like a new thing that they do that's like unique to their own culture or something like that. Like it might have been like a really easy, or even like a different way to tie your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You might think like, oh,
The tying your shoes like illustration probably isn't the best, but I get what you're saying. No, but like I understand what you're saying, totally. And it just takes a level of saying, like, here's why humility is a defining characteristic of someone who's educated, because they realize that they don't know everything. Like, that's it. It's just a posture of, I don't know everything that there is to know about this world, whatever else. But I want to. I'm willing to. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So, I just want to understand, so, being humble, like, an educated person can be humble, but can't they also not be humble? Like, someone that, like, has, like, you know, did, like, 6 years of college, has PhDs, and thinks they're, you know, they
If you can get a PhD in 6 years of college, you deserve to be prideful. That is impressive.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
I do.
You can still be arrogant and educated.
Well, so here's the thing, is that what we're trying to do is to redefine what it means to be educated. Because I think that culturally, you can say someone could be prideful and be educated. For me, that person lacks something very key into what it actually means to be an educated person, which is like a fundamental humility or like open-mindedness or desire to learn more. Because you can be educated and know and be like a specialist in one thing. So like Elon Musk. I don't think anyone would talk to him about like astrophysics and chemistry and things like that, right? But I think the fact that he may or may not, based on like interviews that I've seen with him, probably not as willing to listen to people under him. He's more the one to like talk at people and say, here's what we need to do, right? I think that that is a key to his character, number one, but also his, this sounds weird, right? His lack of education. Because he's not dumb. He's he's like Tony Stark, right? He's one of the smartest people alive. But he's one of those people who's like, well, I wasn't equating those two, sorry. It's real to me, dang it. Oh, yeah, there we go, got it. But I think that he's a great example of that person who's like super smart, but like one of the dumbest smart guys I've ever met. No. But I mean, like, it just, you guys are really detailed in like critiquing everything I say. That would, I don't know. So I 100% understand what you're saying and like I get it, but I think that what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do, is to offer a different perspective of what to be educated really is. I think if we offered like that cultural perspective of to be educated, yeah, you can be smart and prideful. But I think for me it's really difficult because then what you do is affected by your picture, your perspective of education, right? So like if I think I know everything, where is there room to grow or room to learn anything? There isn't really. And then I think pride becomes like a natural byproduct of that. Whereas like, but it's also a balance, right? Richard Dawkins said this, like a pronounced atheist. Said, I want to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that my brain falls out. I agree with that. Both sides of the coin, so to speak, there. So while I understand what you're saying, I'm trying to offer us a different picture of what this is. Because then I think it impacts this other question of like, why do you desire to be educated? Let me offer one more thing too. I think an educated person we can define usually by, I would define by a degree, right? Someone who gets a PhD in 6 years. I'm just messing with you. And someone who is aware, right? So who has like an awareness of their surroundings, who is has an awareness also of their selves, like themselves. We'll come back to this in a second. So let's think about this, given that question about like, can't, prideful people be educated? And the implications of that. Why do you desire to be educated? Why are you a covenant? Why are you probably going to go to college next year? Why are you going to do all of that is an education and to be educated? Yeah. What do you mean by that's how you make it in the world? Mm. Yeah, that's a big one. is that most of us are going through this process, which can sometimes be drudgery, like can be terrible and awful and like hard and boring, for the sake of the carrot at the end of the race, right? Like the job. Even, yeah, we're not going to go into that. Yeah.
Just related to that, like I want to go into the medical field, so if I'm not educated, then it could actually like end someone's life.
Absolutely. That's not what I'm saying, though, right? So, like, what I'm trying not to say is what I'm trying to say is not that knowledge is bad, because then we've just got a bunch of dumb people running around, and that's not good. Like, that's not beneficial in any way, shape, or form. What I'm trying to say is, like, what is the goal of your education? Is it so that you would have information, so that you can perform your job, so that you can make money, so you can do and so on and so forth, right? I'm saying that the goal of education needs to be something inherently different. Not outside of those things, but be the umbrella that all of that other information and skills and money and stuff falls underneath. Because if this becomes the ends, right, like the goal of why I'm educated and why I desire to be educated, then, like, on a very fundamental level, what happens if we're still in coronavirus and there are no jobs? What value does education hold then, if not for that purpose? I'm being really vague with this because I want to hold on a second to get to the point in what I'm actually saying. Saying it means to be educated and what education is for. But just trying to show that, like, if these things are not bad. Like, if you put money up here, right? Why be educated? Like, to make money? It's not a bad thing. Most Christians, no, I won't say most Christians. I've heard a lot of Christians say, like, you don't want to ever do that. You go into something because you just love it. Well, also, like, I'm a lot of dollars in student debt because I went into something because I loved it. I'm not saying I regret it. I fully don't. But I'm not going to say that Hannah has to make that same choice. But if the reason that you go into it is money, my life would be terrible. And I would argue that even if you make $500,000 a year, your life would still be just as rough. It would be a little bit easier, but it wouldn't necessarily be better. There's an important distinction to be made between those two things. Never mind. So does that all make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing knowledge. I am very pro-knowledge. I've got 2 master's degrees. Like, hopefully I wouldn't be like, oh, we all need to be idiots. But it can't be the goal that we pursue. There has to be a different goal, has to be a rationale for why we desire to be educated. Yeah. You 3, and then we've got to move forward. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, why is because of some sort of accomplishment.
Yeah. I think that can be good.
People like graduation from high school, graduation from college, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
I was going to say it can be about self-growth, and when you become educated, you can find fields of study that you're interested in or passionate about, and it can become like a source of happiness in your life.
Well, you just took away my main point. No, I agree completely. Yeah, you.
Kind of what I was going to say. I was going to say, because, like, obviously, like, each generation gets educated, but, like, it's our job to become educated so we can reciprocate, like, that same education for, like, future ones.
I get what you're saying. So that we do this, or we have an appropriate view of education so that we can be models for others, so that, in effect, the cycle of why you become educated can be broken. If it's like a negative thing, I would say. Like if it's for a job or money, things like that. Again, those aren't bad, but yeah. Those are all fantastic, guys. Like, and here's the thing. This is... I think that there is value in going into a specific college or degree program or whatever that makes a lot of money. We'll talk about this a lot more when we get into society. But I think that it is also possible to work at McDonald's and to have that happiness that we're talking about. And it's also possible to make $1 million a year and go home at night, every night, and like drink yourself into depression because you feel like there's no joy in your life. It sounds weird to say that. And like practically we can joke about it and be like, $1 million a year? That sounds great to me. Which I agree. I would love to not have to worry about money and things like that. But also, like, what you do is not your identity. But what is how you achieve that. The rationale behind what you're doing. Yeah. 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 Do you have your hand up? Okay. So, here's what I'll say. I want to transition this into here because I want to give you my thesis, which is basically the point that I've been getting at, that I've been kind of vague about. The goal behind this is that I want to give you a thesis and then 3 really quick points as a model for you of what I want you to do or what I'm going to be asking you to do with your worldview thesis. Okay? So, here's my thesis statement. The purpose of education. So really, what does it mean to be an educated person, things like that. Which, the purpose of education, I am referring to as selfhood. Here's what that means. That's like a fancy philosophical like word, whatever, for this idea of being aware. Not about my surroundings, but about internally, myself. It's about saying, it's about asking this continual question of not, what am I going to do? But one that's more fundamental, which is the why am I doing this? Okay? So this is the why, not the what. Also, selfhood is just another word for self-knowledge, self-growth, developing your passions, things like that. Let me pause there for just a second because this is really important. Is there anyone that doesn't get the idea of selfhood? Because that can be like a weirdly intimidating word. I don't know why, but it just kind of can be. Really just talking about self-knowledge. That I know more about myself, my passions, what I love, what I want to do, rather than what I'm doing. Okay? So the purpose of education is about knowing oneself. This requires religious truth as its center. Now, really quickly, I'm not saying every school has to be a Christian school. What I am saying, though, is that religious truth is broader than just Christianity, which is why at the end I want to talk about why the Christian worldview is so important for this. But I'm talking about, you could be Hindu, Buddhist, Confucian, Taoist, Jewish, whatever. The idea is that you have a fundamental understanding of humanity, of like yourself, that is different than what culture, society, what it means to be educated, not all of these obviously, but some of them do, than everyone else. Because it says there's something more to humanity than just what I do, but the why behind it. Because naturally, if you ask that question of why, then what you do will come. And it'll actually be more effective, I think. So, here's my first point. What was my first point? Oh, yeah. Society obscures our pursuit of, or really even just our understanding of, selfhood. Society obscures this idea of selfhood. So, this is getting back to what we talked about with there can be a smart person that is really prideful. Totally agree with that. But that is the societal perspective of what it means to be educated. What we're trying to say is that this is what it means to be educated. So how does society obscure that? Obscure, right? I mean, like, it doesn't say, oh, here's another thing, but it holds up like frosted glass in front of someone that you can't see what's on the other side. It just makes it more difficult, not impossible, to see. What ways does our culture or our society make it hard to like understand ourselves more?
Well, it's kind of a part, I don't know, but like doing things for the idea of like money rather than like stewardship or whatever.
That's great. Yeah. So here's what I would say. No, it's okay. Utility is the word for it. Utilitarianism is like the philosophical thought. It's just to say that anything that has value only has value insofar as it produces something. So like this class for you only has value as long as it gets you a bump in your GPA. Or it only has value insofar as it can give you the 10-page paper at the end that gets you the grade that you need that you might be able to even use for a freshman college course. It has value right, like it only has value, not intrinsically in that it does something to like transform you as a person. It just informs you and gives you like information so that you can like do something. So is that kind of what you're getting at? Money, I would say, is like the reason. Yes. Yes, my education only has a purpose in that it allows me to get a degree, which allows me to get a job, which allows me to make money. Right? Yes, I think it's way more significant than just that. But again, not a bad thing, but if it is only valuable because of that end, then it becomes problematic. That's great. What else? How does society obscure this idea of selfhood? It gets in the way of us like really coming to understand who we are. Yeah.
I don't know if this is right or not, but like, there are certain expectations in society of how maybe like how you should be doing or how much money you should be making or even like what you look like or something like that, and it can kind of like cause us to compare ourselves to others or like not really appreciate where we are like on our life journey.
Yeah.
Just, like, wish that we were somewhere else.
We're constantly comparing ourselves to others. The quickest way to kill something that you love is to compare it to something else. 100%.
That's deep. I never really thought about it.
What? Oh, did you say that's deep?
Yeah.
It should be obvious. Not really, but like.
Really think about that?
Well, yeah, because I'm going through marital counseling with this couple who the husband or the dude is in my small group, and we talked about that, and I was like, this is one of the most profound things that I've ever been told. Is that the quickest way to kill something you love is to compare it. Because you're constantly looking for something better or looking to people who you think have it better. Yeah. It's like that grass is greener mentality, right? So, society obscures selfhood, utility, those standards. I love that point. The standards is definitely a way that it does that because it doesn't allow us to focus on ourselves. We only focus on other people. Here, let me offer this as kind of the umbrella, and there are so many more for this. Like you could say social media, you could say consumerism, some would even argue capitalism, and like all of these can be like worldview thesis statements. I'm trying to show you that it's not just narrow and focused, like you could extend this forever. There's a philosophical view called materialism. Materialism is the idea that the only things that are real, that have value, that have purpose or meaning are things that are physical. So like materialists are naturally not religious people. Because to be religious requires faith or belief in something outside of this world. It doesn't matter if you're Buddhist or if you're Christian, right? So the materialist will say, no. The way that we find value in this world is by testing it against three things. Does it give me pleasure? Like, is it enjoyable, right? If I do something, does it make me happy? This automatically should kind of trigger like I don't know about that. Because like, I remember running gassers in high school football and hated it, but it was valuable for me. Like it was meaningful for me. Creates discipline, trains you for the game itself, whatever. But it's not pleasurable by any means. The second is convenience. Is what you're doing easily accessible? Is it convenient, right? Yeah. And then the third one is the idea of utility. Does it serve a purpose? If it doesn't, then it probably has no value. Here's why this is important. Because materialism is in complete contradistinction to the Christian worldview. materialism gives us this view of education that it's all about the GPA, the degree, because those are the things that matter because they produce something, rather than transform you. It also touches on a broader idea where humanity, we're just bodies. We're just physical bodies. We're nothing more than that. So we're brains on a stick, right? Basically. So education just becomes about pumping your brain full of information. I'm going to give you like 50 different things to memorize for our unit quiz. You just have to regurgitate them. That's actually not the way my tests go at all. My tests are very different. They're harder in a sense because that would be very easy. It would be very convenient. But I'm asking you to engage with what we're doing, to really like integrate it and like analyze it and synthesize it and then vomit something out that's yours, that's unique, that's your own view, which is ultimately harder because I'm asking you to like spend more time and things like that. Here's where materialism gets it wrong. George MacDonald, who is an old theologian, C.S. Lewis came to Jesus because of his writings, says, we are not bodies, we are souls, we have a body. So what this means is that we come to this phrase now called, we are embodied souls. So what this means then is that education is not primarily for the brain, but it's primarily for the soul. Education is what we do to give ourselves purpose, to find our purpose, to find meaning in life. And it's not through what you do, but it's through going through this class, going through math, going through science, going through phys ed, whatever, PE, for the sake of getting to the heart of the why question. It's not about what you do, it's about why you're doing it. That's what education is about, this idea of selfhood, okay? So let me pause there for just a second. We're quickly running out of time, but any questions about any of this? Like the idea of materialism being just physical, not worldly, but just physical realities and how education can separate that. This is not just education in Christianity, right? Like I've had people do worldview thesis statements on materialism, on like the Christian worldview, right? And like talk about how this view actually impacts how we eat and what we eat. So like our food. Impacts how we listen to music and what music and movies and TV we like take in and how we take it in. Sportsmanship in athletics, right? This ultimately gives a very self-serving but utilitarian and practical view of why we do what we do or what we do. To filter this idea of education through the lens of the Christian worldview says all things that we encounter in our daily lives, from waking up till the time that we close our eyes at night, has the possibility of transforming us to be people who, at the end of the day, are made more into the image of Christ. But along the way, like, we just become better people because we do what we love more. Okay? So, are there any questions about any of this? Great. I hope it would be a little straightforward, probably a little bit of a perspective shift, but let's keep moving and hopefully it'll make more sense. Number 2, learning is not just about higher GPAs, higher SAT scores. It is awakening the soul. In layman's terms, it's woke. In worldview terms, we'll refer to it as being conscious. Not just that your eyes are opened literally, but your eyes are opened metaphorically as well. You see reality for what it really is, but you also see yourself for who you really are. That is ultimately going to be the most uncomfortable thing that you can go through in your life because it requires change. We all need that, but it's tough. So we don't like doing this. So learning, we just say, oh, it's about filling your head with information. It's more than that. Frankenstein, in Frankenstein's monster, I should say, in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, has this really great quote where he talks about how he's been learning and like he starts reading. Have you guys ever read Frankenstein? Okay. Where he starts reading and like becoming more aware of his surroundings and himself. And he says, as I read, however, I applied much personally to my own feeling and condition. My person was hideous and my stature gigantic. What did this mean? And so like as he's reading and reading all this different literature, all these questions are coming up. He says, who was I? What was I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? Those last 4 questions are worldview questions. identity, origins, destiny, all of that. Frankenstein's monster, 18th century, 19th century, right? We get this view that if you have a proper view of what it means to be educated, what learning is, that it does more than just get you the right answers for a test. It actually begins to cause you to do this thing called introspect, to reflect on your own being. That's where religious truth has to lie at the center of it, because if we are embodied souls, and that means that we can do nothing but ask that why and reflect. Grades and scores and quizzes, those become an after effect. But the irony of all this is that I promise you that if you do the introspection part of it and begin to read for the purpose of transforming yourself, cultivating your souls, right? Then the grades will come and you'll actually probably get better grades. But again, that's a bit cheesy and cliche to begin saying, even though it's true. So education is meant for the soul. It's meant to help give us purpose. It's not meant just to fill our heads. Here's the last thing. If education is not all of this and is not what we've kind of been trained, how does the Christian worldview fit in, and why is it so important? Well, it's my argument that through materialism, you find education only being something that's pleasurable, convenient, and if it's useful. Which that leads to anxiety, frustration, shame, guilt, all the things we talked about. The Christian worldview uniquely, I think, offers a view of education that says if you start with these 4 things that I'm about to give you, then that produces the thing that we talked about on Friday called deep, sustainable joy. So here are the 4 things. Love. Love of the subject, right? Discovery. Discovery is what we're talking about when we say open-minded and humble, that we don't know everything, but I want to know. Dialogue.
Students at the bell, I need to see Angela Lucas,
And reflection.
Davis, Keith Billmeyer, Kayla Danvers, Becca Knudsen, Jaden.
Now remember, I'm not saying that the Christian worldview is the worldview that is the only worldview that produces these, but it's the one that cultivates them best. Because it takes humanity and says, you're not bodies, you're souls, and that soul needs to be formed so that you can be the best version of you. The language for that is so that you can flourish as a human. Okay? The Christian worldview is one that allows for that the most, because the whole goal of it, right, is deep, sustainable joy. So what does that actually look like as in education, in eating, in watching movies, in hanging out with your friends, in anything else, in being out in creation and going on a hike? It transforms those experiences. And it says it's not just an experience, but it's something that is altogether learning for the sake of cultivating my soul. Okay? So, Christian worldview allows for this better because it says that we're the means to it, not the end. Whereas materialism says that we're the end. We've already said that, though. Okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about the Christian worldview and define really worldview and what that means. Thanks for coming, guys. We'll see you guys later. All right. You need one of these.
Okay.
These are different readings throughout the whole year for the first 3 semesters.
Yeah.
That we'll do as reading responses. All of that is on Canvas. I'm going to email you a link to our class on Friday because it was 30 minutes of me talking at you about expectations, and it'd just be easier for you to listen to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay?
Is there anything else I missed for that?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Sorry.